Well, my tribe and my young adult squad, a very good evening to one and all. Before we start, let me throw some really exotic and fancy words at you. Deja vu, multiverse, parallel universe, black hole, wormhole, cyborg, teleportation. And now, one quixotic statement. Can the future really influence the past? Well, this is not sounding like a mainstream statement. We know about the cause and effect, but this is kind of a very counterintuitive statement. Our brain would not be accepting it. It's quite overwhelming for us. There are two reasons for that. Firstly, there are billions and millions of brains wandering on this planet. And there is no absolute truth. There is no gospel truth. Every brain has its own version of truth, its own narrative, its own script, its own values, its own belief system. So whenever a brain comes across any unique or a new proposition like this, it tries to negate it. It calls it counterintuitive, delusional, spooky, eccentric. And there's one more reason why our brain doesn't accept statements like that. There is a constant showdown happening between our evolved brain and our ancient brain. I'll tell you a bit about our ancient brain. Now, what happened in prehistoric times? There were brutal tribal wars happening constantly. There were ferocious animals attacked. There were natural calamities. So this little brain of ours was always on a hyper-vigilant mode, always scanning for breaches. So that, my friends, is the reason of a negative bias. So today, persuade your mind, increase your appetite to explore the whole world of possibilities around this wonderful theme. Today we'll have a hybrid approach. We'll talk a bit about physics and a little more about finance because this is the world from where I come from. Next slide, please. Okay, so this dapper, delectable, absolute creator of fiction. I'm sure this is a movie which is immortalized. When I watched this movie, I had goosebumps. So there's a specific scene in this movie which gives me heebie-jeebies and creeps me out, is when Neo, he asks a kid who is like a monk, and when he asks him, how did you turn this spoon? So the monk says, I did not turn my spoon, I turned my intellect. Well, I just wanted to give you a flavor of what's in for us. Well, a very interesting question to my entire young adult squad, my BTS army. If you had $1,000, what would you do? You'd buy their merchandise. I can see few smiles. Would you buy their merchandise? Would you buy the tickets for their concert? Well, sorry to disappoint, but this is for some other day. This was just for your attention. Next slide, please. Okay, now we'll discuss that if we had $1,000, how we can relate it to space and time, and how we can actually get the benefit of future influencing the past and make money out of it. So the first concept, well, everybody knows about time. Time is linear, infinite, symmetrical, unidirectional. But in the Einstein universe, space and time are interwoven together. They are coagulated together. So we bankers, we have taken advantage of that. And we have introduced, in the world of finance, a pricing discrepancy across the ecosystem concept, which is called as an arbitrage. Now, I'll tell you how in this scenario, future is affecting the past. Now, for example, there is a stock of a phone company which is trading on New York Stock Exchange at $25, and the same stock at the same time and different time zone is trading at $25.50. As an arbiter, I'll buy it on New York Stock Exchange and I'll sell it off here, making a profit. Now, this profit is absolutely a time precipitant. If you extrapolate time, the price of that asset or that exchange is influencing the price of that asset in another exchange, which is in the past. Let me tell you in short how this technology works. I'm sure young minds would be wondering how blockchain works because everything, all the transactions happening in the form of fintech. Now, whenever a transaction is initiated, it forms, it is unified in the form of blocks. Each block has its own timestamp data and the data of the previous block. So when the final transaction happens, the final effect is already influencing the past because it's carrying the timestamp data. This is a concrete proof of how future is influencing the past. There are various types of arbitrages like a space arbitrage, which is completely dependent on geographies. Say, for example, I'm in China, I buy something and I sell it, or maybe I export it to US and I put it on Amazon, I make money out of it by selling it with a markup rate. That is an example of a space coagulant arbitrage. The third one, if you have $1,000, how you're taking advantage of a time and a space continuum would be, if I have $1,000, I'll convert it to whatever exchange is the best possible at that particular moment, say dollars to euro, euro to pound, and again to dollar. So now do you see how the final conglomerate is impacting the past dollar exchange rate? Another very interesting concept is indexation. I'll try to explain it in a very basic language. For example, if you buy a property in Pune worth 1 crore, now due to inflation, its price will go down over the years. So what concept the government has introduced, that there is a cost of inflation index. When you multiply it with your asset, you are actually influencing the price of your asset in past while you're calculating today. This is one more example of an arbitrage. Well, this is a very interesting concept which is called as Ulysses Pact. Okay, so before we move to how again in future which is getting impacted, so this is like a time travel. I'm having a conversation with my future self. For a future freedom, I've been giving up my past freedom. So this Ulysses was a Greek king. While he won Trojan War and he was sailing, he saw sirens. Now these were these stunning exotic creatures, half women and half birds, who sang beautifully well. And the men were devoid of rational thing, and they used to just thump into the rocks and eventually ended up getting killed. So he created a pact with his men that if the sirens arrive, they will tie him to the mast of the ship and they will put wax in the ears. Now this is the kind of disciplined approach that we follow in the world of investments. When I wake up in the morning and immediately I turn off my airplane mode, I have a barrage of notification. Something happening in US, something happening on crude oil, something happening at indexation, something happening, and it actually lures me to take short-term calls. So this is the process in which you build a moat around yourself, you protect yourself across all the noise, and your future is actually getting protected. You are not taking any quick calls just because of this noise. Time is illusion. Well, I think there's one slide that we have missed, so I'll just take you a brief on that, which is called as quantum entanglement and the global economy. So quantum entanglement is the process in which two objects who are quite distant from each other, but they are impacting each other extensively. Say, for example, when I'm talking right now, the particles which are coming out from my sound box, they can actually impact a particle or a photon in a distant star at the edge of infinity. Yes, we have the greatest illusion of separation, my friends, but it actually does not exist. Everything is interconnected. Even when you touch your heart, when your heart is beating, for the blood circulation, there's an ion which is called as iron. Now, how is iron formed? It is formed by the collision of supernova stars. That is the only way iron is formed. Now you understand how everything is just interconnected and time is just an illusion. So I just want to relate it to the global economy, that on every day there are economies, trading, buying, selling, goods, services, ideas, thoughts, everything, networking. So in this whole global ecosystem, there are macroeconomic and there are microeconomic factors. At the macro level, there could be a dollar price, a crude oil price, a US yield, a war happening, a natural calamity, a political upheaval happening anywhere across the globe, it definitely impacts our economy. Even a small election in Chhattisgarh or Bihar can impact. So these things are interwoven and interconnected. Now, finally, the conclusion, my conclusory remarks. Time is illusion. See, if you see any pictorial representation of the cosmos, it is always spiral, it is always circular, it's always circle. Have you seen something in a straight line? So how do you know that what is the past, what is the future, and what is the present? As easy as it gets to go from past to future, it is absolutely easy to go from future to the past. It is your mindset which needs to be changed. We can call it anything, you know, scientists can call it quantum physics, spiritual people can call it prayer, some people can call it thoughts, some people can call it placebo effect. See, everybody knows it exists, nobody is denying its existence. So with this thought, I leave this presentation, and thank you so much for a patient hearing. Thank you.